So talking about the bullpen specifically, look, I mean, the bullpen we saw in Boston, lights out. It was looking really good. Kansas City was the second ranked team ERA-wise going into this matchup with Baltimore. They've since, going into today, were fifth. The Orioles went from 8th to 17th as a team in total ERA. I think that's where I just argue with people. You're going to have series. You're going to have times where things don't look good. The biggest part is the Royals' strength. The Orioles beat the Royals' strength in this series, their pitching staff. The Orioles got to Reagans, and then in Game 3 with Lugo on the mound, you got to him as well, and Cole Irvin went out there. So when you can beat another team's strength, gives you a chance. Now, I always say at times, I think that guys are trying to figure out their certain roles, and it's hard when the only two that kind of have roles are Cano and Kimbrel. And by the way, Craig Kimbrel's looked pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
Safe to say. Craig Kimbrel's looked every bit the investment, and he also understands what his role is. A lot of these guys are coming in different situations, and you guys might think that that's not a little thing that matters, but it is. That anyone can be put in different – there's probably 3 guys I'd say right now that they know they're going to be put in the crunch situations. Danny Coulombe, Cano, and Kimbrel, probably the 3. The rest of the guys, it's like, hey, you could be thrown in to eat innings, or you could be put in a high-leverage situation, and that takes more experience and time. So I just think it's so early to cross the bridge of like hitting the panic button on guys where you see all what they're capable of. Now, this is July, and the Orioles are, these games that they're finding more ways to lose, then you got to sit there and go, hey, we got to make some decisions. But on April 21st of 2024, and in this economy, Brad,
yeah,
I think they're okay. I really think they're okay. And again, a lot of people that were shutting down what Cole Irvin was doing, guess what? Irvin showed a great outing today. And then, for me, that's what it's kind of all about. You have guys in place, but you got to let them go out and figure it out, and I think that we sometimes forget that the most important thing at the end of the day is winning. If you're winning, you can have more time to figure things out. If you lose, everybody hits panic, and then you're going to have to make things change because then you got to find what works to have success. Right, Zach? Backward hat, Zach. Looks like he has meat. It looks like he's on top.
Spirit Bomb. We're on the same page here. Johan Ramirez. I don't know what that was about, but what an absolute mess from him. I'm not like attacking him personally, but just an absolutely terrible game. 5 pitches and 1 earned run off of those 5 pitches was a bit crazy. But we'll see what happens with Johan there. But another thing that I did want to bring up too was just the usage on Big Mike Baumann. 21 games into the season, he's thrown in 10 of them, 9.1 innings pitched, and there was a lot of people that I think have given him a lot of grief. But I think from a perception for perspective, that's a lot of games that he's been involved in. It's a lot of use. I think there's 2 things that are happening. One, you see him more, so whenever there's a mistake, it's amplified. And then 2, I think there is a case to be made that perhaps, and you can tell me because you know him more than anybody else, is there any sort of concern about overusing Big Mike? Because I mean, it's a lot. I feel that feels like a lot. He threw 64 innings last year. This feels like he's on his way to 100 plus.
Yeah, how do I want to describe this? Last year, Mike was leading the team, I think, in wins at one point last year. Just
he's 10-1.
Yeah, death taxes, and Mike's sneaking out a W. And he was put in a lot of different roles and situations last year. And I think at some point, and people got to remember, he's only been a starter up until really last year. I know in 2022, he was out of the pen for the team to start, but out of the bullpen to start the season, but he's been a starter. So to change from a starter to a reliever takes a certain mentality to get used to. The second thing is in being able to bounce back consistently. And so that takes time as well. So you're looking at it, and I looked at it right now. Yeah, the bullpen's used Mike's at 9 1/3, Cano's at 9 2/3, Keegan Aiken's at 9 2/3. And so, that's more than the likes of Danny Coulomb. I think Coulomb probably, I don't know if it's updated now since then, but you're right. It is a lot of use for some of these guys. Now, I think what I'm happy about is, and this is with everything with experience, Mike learned a lot from last year that's going to help him this year. And same with the other ones. The ones that kind of worry me in this case, and that's not because I don't believe in his talent, is Tate. It's because of him coming off of an injury, and he's trying to find his rhythm. I'm glad he got out of it and got a clean inning today, but it's been a long road for Tate. So like guys like that, I look at it, but guys like Baumann, I think you just need to stick with because, and I've played every single level with him. I've seen all the good parts and the rip after dark parts with Mike, but what I will say, pure stuff. You need Mike Baumann on your team, and
he's got the best fastball on the team.
When Mike puts everything together, people will understand what we're talking about. But you got to keep and I think that's just the way I'm gonna leave it, because when you're looking at stuff, it's up there. So, but like I said, it's hard. Imagine like we go into work all the time, Zach, and I'm like, hey, Zach, I think I want you to help me with the Ryan Ripken Show, but and I give you maybe an idea of what it's going to be, but then the next day I tell you 3 or 4 things. So kind of what I do now, right? Just 3 or 4 things, tell you what to do. And you're kind of sitting there going, well, what the hell? But in all honesty, actually, we have roles on our team here with the Ryan Ripken Show. When you know what you're expected to do, it makes it easier. It's harder when you don't know what you got to expect, and then you got to go out there and be successful. Does that make sense? Am I sounding nuts? I am nuts.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, no, I think you put it perfectly. And I think that goes for a lot of guys right now. And it's such an early season problem for not just the Orioles, so many teams. This part of the year, man, I think we're not even 15% of the way through the season yet. Everyone on the team, and especially the bullpen, is trying to figure out their roles. What situations am I getting into? Exactly. Like Zach says, that's kind of what they're telling Mike right now. They're like, hey, we think you're going to be in this role, but we're also just going to throw you in these random situations where we need you to go get outs. And it is hard for guys, especially guys like Baumann. I would even say Keegan Aiken, who has thrived this year, I believe, but we've seen him all the way from mop-up duty in games that don't mean anything to high-pressure situations last night, going to get out there in the late 7th, 2 outs in the 8th inning. So it's different players are having different roles. And it's just, at the end of the day, once people start truly getting into that role and helping out their, I don't want to say mindset, but kind of like you said, Rip, getting in that mindset of, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I can expect. You can get your head right and really thrive in those situations instead of being caught off guard. And then suddenly you're trying to play in a situation you didn't expect to be in.
Yes. And that's the part. When guys, I've made this, everyone's a creature of habit, baseball players in particular. We do better with structure, with the system, what you want to do. And so that's why when Zach Lowther comes on here, when he has good Wi-Fi and we have our schedule aligned perfectly, Zach can even explain more and more because I can't even tell you how many times Zach and I have just talked shop after games about pitching, about what's going through, what stuff that we're working on. These guys are doing the same thing, but now being at the big league level specifically, you're constantly evaluated. And that's the other part of it too. It's like expect the unexpected, but there's an expectation that you got to succeed. And that's a whole other element to it. And that's why guys like Craig Kimbrell that come in and some people go, he sucks. He's not as good as he is. Erroneous, by the way, erroneous comments. But there's a reason he lasted so long. He knows what he's doing. He's figured it out. But also there's a reason why Yennier Cano has figured it out recently. It takes time. You don't know until you get to that certain point, then you can have success. Ryan O'Hearn, same thing. People look at people's past. You got to look at what can be the tipping point that gets them over the hump. And right now, these guys are figuring it out while they're winning a lot of games. Like, imagine if you're the Chicago White Sox where you're trying to figure it out and you're losing every stinking game. Shout out Gavin Sheets, by the way. I hope my guy keeps doing well. It's a rough go for the Chicago White Sox right now. So context, people. The White Sox are 3-18. 3-18. Sometimes it feels like the Orioles have that record when they lose one game of a series. But it's okay. Yeah. If it's not, things go wrong, you can blame me. Definitely can blame Kevin as well.